Welcome back to another episode of the Diabetes Digital Podcast with Wendy and Jess. Today is episode 2 in our series all about popular diets for people with diabetes and prediabetes. And we could not have the series without talking about veganism. Today, we're going to explore if a vegan diet is a good fit for people with diabetes, what the research says, and we're going to give you practical tips along the way.
Welcome to the Diabetes Digital Podcast. I'm Wendy.
And I'm Jess, and we're best friends, registered dietitians, and diabetes educators.
Through our telehealth platform, diabetesdigital.co, we offer accessible and personalized virtual nutrition counseling for people with diabetes and prediabetes.
Visit diabetesdigital.co, that's C-O, to book your first appointment. We accept insurance and offer affordable self-pay options. Now, let's get into today's episode.
This podcast is brought to you by Hero Bread. As dietitians, we're always on the hunt for store-bought foods that we can confidently recommend to our patients. But here is the catch. Anything we recommend has to actually taste good. Life is short, and I both live to eat and eat to live. That's when Hero Bread reached out. I'd seen them in stores, but I hadn't picked anything up yet, and they had sent a bunch of products for us to try. Now, my husband and I, we love food, and we were immediately hooked. Hero Bread isn't just tasty, it's functional too. Each serving has 0 to 2 grams of net carbs, no sugar, and 4 to 10 grams of protein depending upon the product. So the Hawaiian rolls, for example, which are new and I love, they have 4 grams of protein per serving. It's perfect for managing blood sugar or adding more protein while eating the bread you love. Their tortillas are a new favorite in my house. My husband and I both love using them to make quesadillas as quick snacks. I'm a big quesadilla girl. I've also been using their bread for sandwiches. I love making a sandwich for lunch because it's easy and it's filling, but I am picky about bread. It has to be the best part. And here's the thing. Sometimes breads with health claims tend to be dry and disappointing, but not this one. Hero Bread is moist, chewy, and really, truly satisfying. Their hamburger buns are also perfect for my vegetarian patties, and the extra protein helps me hit my daily protein goals. Now, whether you're looking to manage your blood sugar or you just want to enjoy a delicious bread option with added protein and prebiotic fiber, Hero Bread is a simple and tasty option. Ready to give it a try? Visit hero.co to shop their full lineup and use our special coupon code DD10, that's DD as in Diabetes Digital 10, to get 10% off at checkout. And don't forget, they also offer free shipping for orders over $50. That's hero, HERO.co. Now, on to the episode. So before we jump in, I think we should define what a vegan diet even is. So a vegan diet, for those who are not familiar, excludes any animal-derived products and focuses on plant-based foods. And a vegan diet is not to be confused with a vegetarian diet, which still might include different animal products like eggs and dairy, depending upon the type of vegetarian diet it is. But a vegan diet typically doesn't include, like I mentioned, any animal products and even excludes things like honey because it is made from bees. Now, why would people want to do a vegan diet? There are so many people out there who wonder, they love meat. They're like, what's the deal with this? And there are many reasons. And I support a lot of those different reasons, right? Like ethical considerations. And especially as I get older and I've had my dog, like this is something that is really hits close to home for me when it comes to just like how animals are treated and even dairy farms, things like that. Like I've messaged many dairy farms asking how the animals were treated. So I totally understand wanting to be vegan for ethical reasons, right? Another one is environmental. There are many studies that do suggest that cattle farming has a negative impact on the environment. And there are many people who really care about the environment and want to, make a change any way that they can. And the third thing, and this is what we're going to talk most about today, is health. I have seen so many people on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube talking about, they had prediabetes or they had diabetes and they went vegan and that's all they had to do and it completely cured their diabetes. So we want to, dive right into that. Now, what are some of the benefits of a vegan diet? Just like zooming out. I will say that when a vegan diet is really considering all nutrients, it can be nutritionally balanced. And there's so many people who do a vegan diet who make sure that they're getting enough protein, who make sure that they're getting enough fats in their diet. And then there's some people who do a vegan diet who maybe aren't having as much of a balanced diet. I know that for me, when I was vegetarian, like kind of as a kid, because I never liked meat, I didn't really have a balanced diet because I didn't understand, what proteins were. And I kind of mostly just focused my meals around carbohydrates. And I do know that there are a lot of vegetarians and vegans like that as well. And, I do want to point out that there is some, cause for caution because without proper planning, a vegan diet can lead to different deficiencies as well as blood sugar fluctuations, which is definitely important for people who have diabetes or prediabetes. So we're going to dive right into that. And Wendy's going to get into some of the studies.
So as Jess was saying, when vegan diets are planned properly, they can be very high in fiber, complex carbohydrates, lower in saturated fat, which is great for your heart health. And balanced vegan diets can help with blood sugar management long term. There have been a few studies that I want to highlight. There was one low-fat vegan diet study that improved glycemic control and cardiovascular risk factors in a randomized clinical trial for people with type 2 diabetes. Participants were randomly assigned to a low-fat vegan diet or a diet following the American Diabetes Association guidelines for 22 weeks, and the vegan group did show significant reductions in A1C levels and LDL cholesterol, which is considered the unhealthy cholesterol, compared to the ADA group, indicating that there was improved blood sugar control and improved cardiovascular health as well. And then there was another systematic review done in people that have type 2 diabetes, and the findings suggested that plant-based diets were associated with improvements in emotional and physical well-being, including better blood sugar control and quality of life. The last study that I will cite also looked at the vegan diet and its impact on insulin resistance. This was a systematic review meta-analysis, and the results indicated that vegan diets also significantly improve markers of insulin sensitivity, which is really important for blood sugar management. So there are definitely studies out there that support health benefits for people that have type 2 diabetes. It's important, though, to work with your healthcare provider, with your dietitian, just to make sure that this is something that is going to be sustainable long term, because some people see it as a lifestyle. For some people, it is like a diet, meaning as in like a very specific way of eating. And for people who enjoy animal products, it can be a challenge to, sustain a vegan lifestyle, a vegan way of eating long term. And the reality is that you can include if you wanted to, you can include animal products into your diet and have it be done in a way that is healthy and that promotes blood sugar balance. It's all about finding the right fit for you.
Yeah. The funny thing is, the amount of people I know who are like, I was vegan once for like even
That
1
was
month.
me.
Yeah, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. Like I probably have 1,000 stories of people who are like, I was vegan once, but I don't have many stories of people who are still vegan. Not to say it's not possible, but I think that speaks to the sustainability, because I do feel like unless you have a very strong why and the why makes sense for you, I don't think it's sustainable. I think the why, like I said, can be ethical. I totally get that. I think it can be environmental. I think it can be health, but the thing with health is it's not necessary, right? Like, yes, there are studies to support that you can have some health improvements on a vegan diet, but if health is the only reason you're doing it, it is not necessary, and we'll get more into that. Now, I want to talk about nutritional planning, because when people are on vegan diets, they do have to kind of look at their nutrients more. I know a lot of vegans, though, they get very annoyed thinking that, you can't get your protein on a vegan diet, or when people think that they can't get their protein on a vegan diet, or that they're always walking around with all these deficiencies. Yes, I get it. But there is more of a risk just because certain foods that you're eating on a vegan diet tend to be lower in specific nutrients. For example, vitamin B12, iron, calcium, omega-3s, and vitamin D. While you may have some foods on a vegan diet that will provide you with those nutrients, they're very few and far between. So it might take supplementation in some cases. And there actually are vegan omega-3s. They're derived from algae. So if you're looking for a vegan omega-3, I highly recommend that. But you can get omega-3s from other foods as well in a vegan diet. Things like flax seeds, chia seeds will contain some of that nutrient. So I think it's all about making sure your diet does have a variety. And then, like I mentioned, maybe having a multivitamin or supplementing with specific nutrients as needed. You can also go to your doctor and get tested for these nutrients. That happened to me where my doctor just happened to test me because I was experiencing some hair loss, and they found that I was low in vitamin D, low in zinc, and low in iron. So then I knew exactly what to supplement with. And I think for me, it may have been partly because my diet does lean a little bit more plant forward vegetarian. I don't know, but it's helpful to have that information. So ask your doctor to test you for some of these nutrients. One of the common pitfalls I do see with vegan meals is not really taking into consideration protein. And this might be for people who are maybe more new to the vegan diet. I definitely think that most people who have been eating vegan for a while, like they understand which foods have protein and how to balance those meals. But sometimes people who are newer don't always have that information. So when it comes to protein specifically, I will say that plant-based proteins often lack one or more essential amino acids. And for those of you who want a little bit of a chemistry lesson, amino acids are the building blocks of protein that the body can't produce on its own. So to make sure that you're having complete protein intake, vegans often need to include a variety of protein sources throughout the day. So, what are some examples? Things like legumes, which is beans, lentils, chickpeas, combining those with grains like quinoa or rice will create a complete amino acid profile. So, they're foods that naturally pair really well together. Other options include soy-based products like tofu, tempeh, or edamame, which are considered complete proteins all on their own. So this is why vegans tend to incorporate, tofu and things like that into many of their meals because they're getting that complete protein. Now, why do we want to make sure that we're getting enough protein? Well, the problem is if we have inadequate protein intake, that can lead to muscle loss. It can also lead to fatigue and blood sugar instability. And this can be especially important for people with diabetes because they really want to prioritize getting enough protein in their meals so that they do have stable blood sugars and, keep their muscles strong.
Exactly.
So you can incorporate vegan protein sources, like I already mentioned, tofu and tempeh, but there's also seitan, legumes, and don't feel bad if you need to add some protein powder as well. I really love ProMix. It's a protein powder made by a dietitian. I've now got my husband hooked on it as well. But it tastes really good. They have a vegan version. It's probably one of the best vegan proteins I've tasted. It's not chalky. So that's one example. And there's also now vegan protein yogurts, Greek style yogurts that are vegan. So one in particular is Kite Hill. I really like that brand because their vegan Greek yogurt has, I believe, like 17 grams of protein in it, something around there, which is pretty significant. You can also get protein on a vegan diet from different plant-based milks. Another one that I love, in addition to soy milk, is Ripple, which is a plant-based milk that gets its protein from peas, and it tastes really good. I usually have like 1 or 2 cups of that a day. So there are different sources of protein. It's just being mindful about making sure you're including those with most meals.
Yeah, I love Ripple. During the colder months, I make hot chocolate with
Oh,
Ripple, and it's pretty creamy too, which is
yeah.
nice because some of the plant-based milks are like thinner; they're a little
Yep.
watery. So, yeah, I really like Ripple. I also want to talk about some of the practical challenges that you might encounter if you decide to go vegan. Something that I see happen a lot is the social gatherings. I was literally just at like a friend gathering where, everyone cooked and there were a couple vegans in the group. And so I did make a few vegan dishes, but then I made, like mashed potatoes, for example, and I put butter and cheese and things like that. And it's like, who can say no to like buttery mashed potatoes? Like the vegans were like, oh, we're just gonna have a bite, like, and it's like, of course, like, absolutely. But that can be a challenge because chances are that most of your friends and family are not going to be vegan. And so you're probably going to be in these social settings where maybe there'll be some dishes, maybe you bring them yourself. There might be some dishes that are not vegan, and it's very tempting to enjoy those dishes, especially if you like, butter, cheese, chicken, etc. So you might just have to ask those questions like, oh, what was this made with? And that can be stressful and uncomfortable. So it's like you just have to keep that in mind if you're really trying to go all the way with it. Some vegans are like flexible, but if you're like trying to be 100% on board, then those are just things that you're going to have to keep in mind. Things like reading labels, like making sure that there are no animal products and, some of these food products that you'll find on the shelves. That can be overwhelming because you're like, well, the whey, gelatin, like, is that an animal derivative? Like, can I, eat that? And that's really a personal choice, right? So it's just another thing to think about. And this can be stressful, just take into account like your mental health. Like, do you feel good with the changes that you're making? Is this becoming just like something that you're constantly thinking about? Or are you able to like ease into that transition of like not eating any animal products? And then something else that I want to touch on is finances, because it can and it cannot be pricey going vegan. It just all depends on how you do it. I feel like if you are leaning into like whole foods and you're eating a lot of beans and vegetables and fruits and things like that, I think there is like a way to do it where you're not breaking the bank, because meat is usually more expensive than vegetables and whole foods. However, when you're eating out, for example, or ordering in, vegan meals do tend to be overpriced. I stand by that. Like these smoothies, I'm like, why are you charging $12 for a smoothie? It doesn't make any sense. Or like you're charging $15 for a salad. Like, and you're not completely satisfied. So that's just something to keep in mind. Like sometimes these vegan foods, especially like the more processed foods, like the specialty items and desserts, they can be expensive. So budget is a consideration for sure.
Yeah. One thing that I want to point out is if you are intrigued by some of the health benefits of being vegan, or like we mentioned, it aligns more with your values, but you also find it pretty challenging and that would stress you out, you might want to consider a more plant forward diet versus going
Yeah.
completely vegan. I love the idea of plant forward eating because that means that most of your plate is centered around plants. And even when we consider the USDA My Plate, that's still a plate that is 75% plants, right? Because it's like making half your plate vegetables, one fourth carbohydrate, and one fourth protein. And so it's 75% plant based, similar to the ADA plate for people with diabetes. It's also majority plant based. So you can kind of take that approach if that kind of aligns more with where you're at in life. And a couple things I would point out is emphasizing whole grains, emphasizing vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds. Those are all plant-based foods that can be incorporated into your plant-forward diet. The nice thing about this is it incorporates some flexibility. So you don't have to completely give up animal products if you really love your meat. I come from a family of carnivores, not seriously, but where they love their meat and you're not taking away nobody's tri-tip. So you can incorporate that if that's something that's really important to you, but maybe it's just in smaller portions or less frequently. Another thing to consider if you are eating kind of more of a very meat heavy diet right now is to make gradual changes. And you can do things like incorporating vegan meals 1 or 2 days a week. Maybe that's a change that works well for you. And maybe that's still having an impact on the environment or, your ethical concerns without completely going vegan if that's not something that in your heart of hearts, you know that you can do for the rest of your life. So just, try to focus on being plant forward, aligning your dietary choices with your values, health goals, and overall well being.
Yeah, so the key takeaway here is that going vegan is a personal choice. It can absolutely be beneficial, but it's not the only way to manage your diabetes. There are so many ways to eat that are healthy, that align with your values, your culture, your preferences. You should definitely consider working with a registered dietitian, whether you're going vegan or not, just to have that support and guidance along the way. You can visit diabetesdigital.co/quiz to fill out our intake quiz and get matched with one of our registered dietitians. We are, for the most part, fully covered by insurance for about 95% of people. So you can fill out your information and we'll verify your benefits free of charge. Also, talk to your healthcare team before you make any drastic dietary changes, especially if you're on medication, because you might have to make some adjustments there. We always encourage experimentation and listening to your body, but also you want to do it responsibly and you want to do it under the guidance of your medical team. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, review our podcast, share this episode with someone who might find it useful, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're interested in nutrition counseling with one of our expert dietitians to help improve your prediabetes or diabetes, visit us at diabetesdigital.co. Also, if you found our conversation helpful, do us a favor and rate and review this podcast on iTunes, plus share with someone who might find this helpful. You can also connect with us on Instagram at diabetesdigital.co. And tune in every Wednesday for practical, inclusive, and culturally humble diabetes insights. We'll catch you later. Bye.